Ba 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 boom boom. Good morning, sunshine. Good morning, sunshine. Good morning, sunshine. Good morning, sunshine. Welcome to the program. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. Today's February 1st. February 1st. Oh my God, February 1st. In the year 2023. Good morning, everybody. Give yourselves a hand for being here. Yes. We're going to tackle the very, very important subject of racism in America. Racism in America, is it real? Is racism real? Is it a real thing? Are people inherently racist? Or is it just something stuck in their mind that they feel inferior, they feel less than, and therefore it's your fault? So SUNY State University of New York has passed a fantastic new curriculum that requires every student, in order to receive a diploma, you must take diversity, inclusion, and equity class, or you can't graduate. Right? Forcing this critical race theory of sorts down people's throats. Now, I think, my opinion is that racism, this type of assault on democracies like United States, for example, is unjust. When you look at the transatlantic slave trade from the years 1600s to the 19th century, 16th century to 19th century, you realize that, yes, there were slaves being sold to the Americas, but who was doing it? Who was rounding up the slaves in Africa? Was it white people running into the Congo and Western Africa, rounding up slaves and then putting them on boats and selling them? No, that's not what happened. There was slavery in Africa for 1,000 years. Right? Blacks, conquering other blacks. And they weren't even called blacks at the time. They were just people of Africa conquering other Africans, and the defeated became the slave society of the time. And at some point, those people there in Africa decided to sell the slaves off to these indentured people off to the West. Now, why will black racist society in America not acknowledge that simple fact that it wasn't the white people that caused their grief in Africa? It was their own people. Right? It was their own people that did it. For example, Trey Nichols, right? He just got beat down by 4 black cops, black guy beat down by 4 cops. And you got people in New York City with signs saying that stop racism against blacks. What is Trey Nichols? What does the Trey Nichols story of getting beat down by 4 angry cops, probably smacked up on something, high on something, what does that have to do with racism? If the cops are black there's more ridiculousness on top of ridiculousness. So we're going to take a deep dive, somewhat, as deep as I care to go. And by the end of the program, you'll know exactly where the slaves from Africa came from and who was selling them and all the shit that was going on at the time. I got a couple of things that a couple of things lined up, and we'll take a look. We'll take a look. We're just doing a casual search. It's not to say that all blacks are racist and whites are racist, but there is a movement in this country that is causing a lot of problems and confusion, where you've got anyone who is non-white blaming whites for all their problems, and that is factually incorrect. It's dangerous as a democracy. And it's just in poor taste. It shows your own ignorance when you say something like that. So let's dive in. This is my thumbnail today. Thumbnail, there he is. There he is. Barack Obama, right? Was Barack Obama a indentured slave? Is he the product of indentured slaves? Rose to president of the United States, has better teeth than this white guy right here. Look at him. Look at those pearly whites, right? He was sold a cargo of 94 prime healthy Negroes. You want to buy some Negroes? We got them. You need them? We got them. All right, corn pickers and cotton fluffers and whatever they do. All right, whatever the indentured slaves were. The other thing about Africa is that so many of before the transatlantic slave trade, again, Muslim countries had fucking black slaves all over the place. It's arguable prior to the 1400s that everybody alive, I get this, almost every single human alive at the time, maybe the 14th century, was either a slave or a slave owner, regardless of national origin, color of skin, color, shape, or size. Everybody was either a slave or a slave owner. Now, you could also say, I speculate that in 100 years or 200 years, those people, 200 years in our future, will look back on this time and say that everybody was a slave. There was government and then there was slaves. We're all slaves to some degree. But why are the slaves eating each other? Why are the slaves with the black skin accusing the slaves with the white skin of being supreme? None of it really makes sense. So we're going to look at this fascinating subject. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Mikkel Sly in the house. Suit Cooter, Thomas Robinson, what's up, man? Damon Bracamonte. What's up, man? Solar Onyx Tones. A lot of new names. Thank you very much for joining me. TJ in the house. Weevil Girl is here. Castle Camden as well. And everybody else is lurking. Thank you all for joining me. And, eating each other. Hey, ho, ha, he, ha. Don't say that. Don't say that. So my name is Marcus Conte. I have a website, video journalist, for lack of a better title. And we're live every morning at 9 a.m. This is what news and opinion looks like in the free world. A free person expressing one's free opinion, and you could take it or leave it. See, that's the wonder and the glamour of free speech. See, you may not like this reporter's opinion, or you may have mixed opinions about this reporter's opinion. But the glory of it is that you don't have to listen. You could go somewhere else if you don't like the opinion, right? It makes perfect sense, It makes perfect sense. If you don't like something, why are you sitting here consuming something you don't like? On the other hand, if you like it, then you want to hit the subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. So people reporting it's cold. It's cold. It's cold right here. If you look down on my screen, you see the temperature. It's 22 frozen degrees here in northeast Pennsylvania. Very, very cold. Very cold. Again, I have a website. It's marcusconte.com. Every morning at 9 a.m. we're live. Come on over. Right now we're on YouTube. If that fails, we head over to DLive or wherever else we can do it. I have a PayPal link, Patreon link. I have a little short story that I'm promoting down the Buddhist avenues. Promoting a story to Buddhists. That's a little short story I wrote, and proud of it. I'm very proud of that story. And so let's start here. Ozzy Osbourne, the great Ozzy Osbourne of the band Black Sabbath, has announced retirement from touring. Oh my God, retirement. Cancels all remaining shows. So Ozzy, 74 years old, still rocking. People paying Ozzy to do his thing, right? Fucking 74-year-old Ozzy. He looks like Satan, right? This is what, if Satan were human, it would be Ozzy Osbourne, right? That's what they used to say about him in the 70s. He's a Satanist. He plays the part. If you ask Ozzy, if you go to a show, right, and after the show, if you ask Ozzy, are you a Satanist? He'll say, well, at least I was for the last hour during the show. It's a big show. But anyway, Ozzy has decided to throw in the towel. He's got spine damage. He's got fucking all kinds of shit. Parkinson's disease. So Ozzy Osbourne, he may go gracefully. I don't know. A lot of these guys will say, oh, yeah, I retired. And then 2 years later, they get bored and they're back on tour. Right? But I can understand the rigors of touring on a 74-year-old guy beat up like that or in, challenged physical condition. Can't keep up with the rigors of travel. I mean, a European tour, going city to city every night. Why don't you do something remote, Ozzy? Why don't you pick one big venue very close to your home where all you got to do is get out of bed and 5 minutes later you're in the stadium and put on the show to the world, right? Video conference it and show the whole world the Ozzy show. Charge $5 to watch, right? Do it on, do something like that. Innovate, right? Innovate. You don't have to, the notion of touring from city to city, especially when you're 74 years old, maybe something that, maybe we're at a precipice, in the digital age. Do something more innovative. So Hunter Biden, wow, still catching tons of shit. Hunter Biden paid assistants thousands of dollars off the books for filthy sex chats. So the Democrats the Republicans are running, now that they have some sort of control in Congress, are now really, really sifting through the Hunter Biden laptop. And it turns out that it's even more disgusting than you can imagine. Here's Hunter Biden with his, doing I don't know what there. I don't want to show that but he was paying. It turns out that he was paying women $1,500, $500, $1,000 to have sexual oriented chats with him. Right now. Does this really matter in terms of the president of the United States? Well, I think it does. I think one of the long-standing arguments with Trump was that his kids were maladjusted. Can you imagine that his 3 or 4 kids, Trump's kids, they're all like perfect citizens, right? No scandal, no scams, no nothing. Right? They're just, they're all just like him. Outstanding people. Ivanka, right? It was because, Ivania, whatever her name is, the daughter. Outstanding people. And before the election, the Democrats were saying, "Oh, those kids are disgusting, and they look like the Addams family." But look at Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's a crackhead, banging hookers, and taking money from destabilizing the government of Ukraine with his father. And Zelensky, right? Doing those dirty quid pro quo deals. So, hey, look, the Hunter Biden laptop story is not so much about the corruption of Joe Biden, but it's about, in my view, it's about election interference. If the American people would have known this before the election, when the information was released by the New York Post, Rudy Giuliani, and Steve Bannon, if the information was allowed to get to the public, it would have been a different situation. Millions of people heading to the polls would have seen what Joe Biden and his family really are. And I think that in a society like America, United States, people would have considered that. They definitely would have considered that before voting. So Hunter Biden's still in the shitter. Majority Taylor Greene Majority Delegate Congresswoman demands civil rights for probe of January 6 arrests. Were there civil rights? The people that rallied at the D.C. on January 6, 2020, were they? Did they qualify for having civil rights? Of course they do. But, Majority Greene, she's bringing up Ashley Babbitt. Remember Ashley Babbitt, the girl that got shot in the face by a cop when she was climbing through a window? Why did the cops shoot Ashley Babbitt in the face at a peaceful protest? She didn't have a gun. They were already in the Capitol. Why did Ashley Babbitt get shot in the face? And why was there never an investigation into it? Taylor Greene is making the argument that we should be looking at it. See, that's why you got to give the Republicans a hand here. The Republicans that are infiltrating Congress, those holdouts that people were frowning upon, are now in power. Majority Taylor Greene is now a sitting congresswoman on a committee that plans to probe civil rights abuses, right, for the January 6th people that are arrested. And now all the riots that go on all over this country with, right now they're happening with Trey Nichols and George Floyd and whoever else, right? Whatever black people decide to protest for, that's okay. But if it's January 6th and you show up at Congress to protest election integrity, to shine light on the lack of election integrity in America, then you are a domestic terrorist and you need to go to jail. Or you need to be executed in the chambers of Congress, which Ashley Babbitt was. Ashley Babbitt was probably, I don't know, you could honestly say that Ashley Babbitt, and here she is this Green one? Yeah, Ashley Babbitt. This is the girl that got shot in the face by the cop. You could say that Ashley Babbitt was the only American in American history, or at least modern American history, to have been executed in the chambers of Congress for voicing her opinion. Right? Ashley Babbitt was executed in the chambers of Congress, climbing through a window to voice her opinion. An American citizen trying to voice her opinion, an unarmed, harming citizen, was executed. And I guess that's how I would frame it. And here they are. These are protesters at gunpoint. Right? So congratulations. We have a congresswoman, the good Republican from Georgia, Miss Greene, doing that work for us. And here we go. So blaming white supremacy for Trey Nichols' death is perverse. Look at a sign. Justice for Trey Nichols, jail killer cops. Okay, that's valid. I agree. Trey Nichols was, in fact, murdered. At least according to the video that everybody saw, it looks like Trey Nichols was murdered by 4 cops, but they're all black. So how does the other sign make sense? This is a revolt against racism. Stop the war on black America. What does one thing have to do with the other? What does a young man getting beat down by 4 cops have to do with a war on black America. They're black. The cops are black. How does that? I don't get it. You're saying that. Well, let the New York Post explain it. There's nothing white supremacists can't do. Right? There's nothing white supremacy can't do. It is supposedly so perverse and so powerful that it could cause black men to sign up to serve as police officers in a major black city and beat up black arrestees. Now think about that. That's what the implication is. They're saying that the black cops that beat up the black man and killed him is racism. How? Where does one have to do with the other? It has nothing to do with the other. It is to the contemporary left what capital was to Marx, was what sex was to Freud, gravity to Newton, and King Charles's head. Right? It is the King Charles's head of public life. Everything is racism off with their head. When there's no direct correlation to any of this, right? On CNN, opinion piece by former Obama official Van Zandt was headlined, quote, "The police who killed Trey Nichols were black, but they might still have been driven by racism." Unbelievable. Unbelievable happening in this country right now. And here we go. So is it something that is just newsable and we shouldn't really, consider racism over everything? No. It's being penciled into law. And I can't hear myself. Hold on a second. I'm wondering why I'm screaming. I got my hat over my ears. I can't hear. So I can't hear myself. So SUNY makes new racial equality class mandatory for graduation at schools. So SUNY, State University of New York, has declared a new class mandatory. Mandatory, just like the vaccine. You will get it or you will not come to our school, and you will not get the piece of paper for graduation. So the 64 campus SUNY college system is turning into the woke University of New York, ordering incoming freshmen at all of its colleges. They will have to pass a new diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice theme class to earn a diploma. So when I went to college 35 or 40 years ago, I can't even count that much anymore, we had nothing of the sort. There was no mandate. There was no mandates for classes. You took what you wanted to take, and you went your merry way. But now, the new college racial equality courses must, according to State University of New York documents, quote, they describe the historical, and this is what we're going to talk about in a minute when I get to it, describe the historical and contemporary social factors that shape the development of individual and group identity involving race, class, and gender. There's nothing wrong with exploring those ideas, but why are you making it mandatory? And then why are you refusing to look at 1,000 years of black slavery in Africa? Right? And then it finally spills over into America, and it's the white people's fault. Not the black people who sold the blacks at the auction block in Morocco and wherever else they were being sold, but it's the white people. It's their fault that we have this, not the black on black, shit. Let's see. Analyze the role that complex networks of social structures and systems play in the creation of perpetuation of the dynamic of power, privilege, oppression, and opportunity. That's word salad right there. That is intellectual, leftist, liberal word salad. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't stand for anything. It's just word salad. Let's put a lot of intellectual words together and sew together obscure theories and then point the finger at the white people because they're to blame. Right? Let's look at the last one. Apply the principles. I used to, once upon a time, Marcus Conte reporting on himself, once upon a time, I used to be what I thought of as a liberal, a leftist sort of, certainly during Occupy Wall Street, as early as 2011, 2012, and well into 2016 during the Bernie Sanders run for presidency. I considered myself on the left, right? And, there was hints of racism, pockets of racism, but in 2016, everybody came together. But then when Bernie lost and Hillary Clinton became the candidate, suddenly everybody was racist because they wouldn't support Hillary Clinton. And it became really, really ugly, right? So I don't have any affiliation with either party anymore, right? I'm tired of it, right? But I just wanted to put on the record that at one point I did identify myself as, center left, maybe even a little further left, to shut down and or put pressure on large corporations to stop the incredible income and wealth inequality in America that is modern day slavery, right? I was for that. And to some degree, I still am for that, bringing corporations down to their rightful size. But this other stuff of blaming all whites supremacy, and if they don't see it, if a white person can't admit that they're inherently racist, then they're inherently racist because they can't see it. Right? That is ass backwards bizarre. You are what we say you are, and if you disagree, you are that because you disagree. That kind of shit. It's intellectual crap. Think tanks in these universities are teaching kids to think like this. See that white guy? You see that white family over there? They have a white picket fence because they see themselves as white and privileged. And when 5 blacks are on their front lawn screaming, racial justice, and they come out with a gun, that makes them racist too. Not to get the jerk-offs off their lawn, get off my lawn, but it makes them racist because they're white and they have a white picket fence and they live in the middle of the country. And the last election they supported Trump, and the Trump sign to them is, oh my God, they see Trump, fucking Trump, oh my God, he's a racist. They get all worked up about it. They get all crazy. I just got worked up about it. They get all crazy about their identity or lack thereof, right? So while the primary focus is on equity and social justice in the U.S., courses can also look at what has happened or is currently happening in other countries by comparison. So to sum this up, at these universities right now, you are required. Man, there is that all. What are they teaching? They're teaching at the core is that America is founded on racism and slavery, which is factually incorrect. So let's look at the facts. These are the facts. So African slavery. Have you ever heard of African slavery? Slavery in Africa, right? Slavery was prevalent in many parts of Africa for many centuries before the beginning of the Atlantic slave trade. Now, the Atlantic slave trade is roughly the years between the 16th century and the 19th century, where black slaves were sold at market in Africa. They were indentured slaves in Africa, and they were sold. Instead of staying in Africa working as slaves, some European settlers who needed a labor force look, the slaves that were indentured in Africa for 1,000 years, right? Those slaves lived a far less inferior life than the slaves that were ultimately brought to America and prospered. Look around you. If every slave in America, if every black person in America is a derivative of this slave trade, who is in a better position? The slave in Africa right now, because there are slaves in Africa right now, right? Or some other deadbeat African, living in a mud tent. They're not all living in mud tents, but you see what I'm saying. Are blacks in America are they less advanced? Do they have less advantage than if they would have stayed in Africa all those years ago? Well, I would argue that. Well, look at my thumbnail today. Look at this handsome black man who rose to the presidency, right? His ancestors, Negroes, were sold on the chopping block, right? All blacks in America believe that all of their ancestry comes from this slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade. Right? So Barack Obama is an inheritor of that. But what African Americans in America fail to realize, and what schools like SUNY fail to teach, is that slavery is an inherent human behavior. Humans are fucking evil. And they will enslave people and get other people to do the fucking work so that they don't have to, historically. That is the fact about humans, right? Humans. So slavery, let's continue. Slavery was prevalent in parts of Africa for many centuries before the beginning of the Atlantic slave trade. There is evidence that enslaved people from some parts of Africa were exported to states in Africa, Europe, and Asia prior to European colonization of the Americas. Some evidence? There is a preponderance of the evidence. The Atlantic slave trade was not the only slave trade from Africa, although it was the largest in intensity in terms of the number of humans over a unit of time. All right? So slavery before let's look at the transatlantic. All right, what is the transatlantic slave trade? The Atlantic slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, or Euro-American slave trade involved the transportation by slave traders of enslaved African people, mainly in the Americas. The slave traders were black in Africa. Confirmed, right? So this was not white people trading off slaves, or look, it wasn't white people running into Africa rounding up black slaves. That's what it was not. What it was again, conquered people. War breaks out. That's what I was reading it earlier, and I forgot what I wanted to say. On any given day in 2016, an estimated 9.2 million men, women, and children were living in modern slavery in Africa. Did you know that? According to globalslaveryindex.org, that 9 million people right now in Africa are living in slavery, right? And who's enslaving them? Is it white America? No, it's black leaders of the country. Right? That's how they fight in Africa. They have a war with the tribe next door, and whoever wins the war enslaves the defeated people and gets them to do the dirty work. Right? Takes their women and children and enslaves them. Right? This is African culture. It's the culture of Africa to conquer and enslave. It also is arguably in the West. The Europeans did it all the time. The British did it to the Irish and the Welsh. The Americans did it to the Italians and the Spanish. Everybody who came to America got got the brunt of that sort of subservience. Right? But Black America continues to point. This is a big problem because it's causing a lot of clouds in America. This equality, inclusion kind of talk, right? So there's another fact for you if you didn't know, Black America, that 9.2 million men, women, and children are currently in modern-day slavery in Africa. Why don't you get on an effing plane and go to Africa and carry a sign through the streets of Africa in whatever country you land in and go tell those African leaders to free your people. Free my people. I am a Black American man, and I demand that you free my Black brothers and sisters of African descent. Right? Why don't you do it? Over half of all victims of forced labor were held in debt bondage. So that's real. Look at this. Various forms of slavery, servitude, or coerced human labor existed throughout the world before the development of the transatlantic slave trade in the 16th century. Right? So almost all peoples have been both slaves and slave holders at some point in their history. Still earlier coerced labor systems in the Atlantic world generally differed in terms of scale and legal status and racial definition. So there you have it. I don't know what much more to say about this other than right now in our country we got this huge push for inclusion, and include everybody. Everybody's a racist, and it doesn't have any foundation in reality. It's the same kind of people, blacks in this case, enslaving other blacks in their own country or the country that they just knocked off, right? And rounding those people up, men, women, and children. Right? Those African leaders were willing to sell indentured children on the slave block. Right? And then it's always the fault of the guy, and not to say that the early Europeans that bought up these slaves were correct in their judgment. What I'm saying is one precedes the other. How do you blame the guy who bought the slave and not the guy who sold the slave? That's the point. Right? That's the greater point here. It's a rabbit hole. The whole fucking racist thing in America is a giant rabbit hole. Right? Get your head out of the rabbit hole and see it. There is no racism. Look out your window. Whites and blacks and purples and yellows and greens are walking the streets of America. They're all elected officials. They all work elbow to elbow, side by side, joyfully sometimes. But why do you have pockets of angry black racists, for example, in the city of New York? If you've ever worked there like I have, 80% black workforce, 100% racist. All of them, at least in my experience, at least in my reporting, I failed to find non-racist blacks in New York City employment. Almost every black I encountered at some point will cry racism, and this has got to change. This has got to stop. This has got to be looked at because it stems into everybody in the middle of the country is a racist. Right? When you go to places like New York and Chicago and all these inner city places, they've never been to the Midwest. They've never been in the middle of the country. They've never driven a car across the country where white people live, right? And pull over in the pancake house and go in and eat the white food with the white people. And instead of, they don't experience racism in America. They experience, hey, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. How you doing? Hey, you doing? That's what you get. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to our our part of the country. You don't experience that sort of racism. It's not because it doesn't exist. It exists in your mind, and it exists on CNN and MSNBC, and now in SUNY colleges across the nation. Well, not SUNY. SUNY is New York, but it's spreading. This notion of all white people are racist. Cut it out already. That's all I really want to say about that. I got nothing else to say. So let's look at the markets thing. We're open. Oh my God. So what are people saying in the chat? I'm sorry, I was very winded on this subject, and I haven't been. I wasn't reading. I'll read it later. But I think we're together. I don't see any angry blacks. I would love angry blacks to come aboard and start with the racial slurs and oh, you're a Conti, you're a fucking white supremacist. Am I really? Am I a white supremacist? All right. So based on my opinion, let's do a survey. One is Conti is a white racist. Right? Or two is Conti is not a racist. Right. So am I a racist or am I not a racist? For having this kind of content, diving deeply into a hot button issue, right? Does that make me, does speaking about this subject make me a racist? Because I think a lot of people will. I think there's a lot of people out there that will look at this and come in and say, see, you can't see it, man, because you're white and you have privilege, and it's beyond you to even understand and comprehend the hurt of blacks. I read my history in high school, and they told me that the white people enslaved the blacks. But what they don't tell you is that you were sold by your own people into a country that ultimately gave you incredible life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness beyond anyone's expectations. All of the slaves that were purchased in Africa are now free-standing, free people able to rise to the highest levels of government in America. President of the United States, Barack Obama, confirms that theory. Quinn Smith says, I am guilty of being white. Everybody else says, I am not a racist. I don't qualify as racist. So, well, there you go. So stock market's open. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 157. The NASDAQ is down 27 this morning. It looks like a little bit of a red day. We're going to get the Fed news. Fed decision on how much they're going to jack up the interest rate. It looks like it's going to be 25 basis points as opposed to 50 basis points or 75 basis points, which is good. Also this week, Intel, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all reporting earnings before Friday's close. So shit's going to get real. Biden administration calls on Apple and Google to do better. I don't know what that means, but the Fed rate hike is what's got people on edge right now. But it's not really affecting the NASDAQ too much. Down 27, not a big deal. And what else? So everything is red at the moment. Apple down $1.50, Amazon down $1.26, Google down 27 cents, Meta, formerly Facebook, down 162. Rivian up to 19, down 34 cents today. I put in an accumulation accumulate at $16 a share. It's 19 now. That was $3 ago. Tesla down $1 today. And yeah, man. So there you go, man. So it's a touchy subject, rough around the edges. I don't know, man. It's just a ridiculous time we live in. Nobody wants to be accused of something they're not, and you almost always are. Again, my example, my experience, not my example, but my experience in New York City working in city employment was that I was viscerally and unequivocally attacked by black racists who saw me as some sort of intellectual threat to their prosperity. Right? That's true. Right? And for that, I was bullied and buggered and ultimately driven out, at least in one job, and then accused of being the racist. Right? So I know what I'm talking about. I have direct experience doing this, or reporting at the Brooklyn Hospital Center in New York City during the pandemic, and being escorted off the property for having white privilege. Reporting, get your white privilege out of here. That case, by the way, is still pending in the New York State Division of Human Rights. Probable cause has been found, and we will someday have a hearing. It's still going. It's still an active case, and we will prove that the hospital was the racist and Marcus Conte was not the racist. And there you go, man. So thank you all for joining me. Marcus Conte reporting. I'll see you guys tomorrow, man. Time to head out to the mountain. Time to head out to the mountaintop. I'm about to go run 5 miles. Breathe. 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 See you guys tomorrow.